Welcome to the Research Works podcast, live from the European Academy of Childhood Disability Conference 2024 in Bruges, Belgium. Join us for interviews with keynote speakers, world-renowned researchers and clinicians, and behind-the-scenes stories from one of the great paediatric conferences in the world.
Well, we have another great episode on your way right now. We're talking to two of my friends who I've only really ever spoken to online, but now we're in person. So hello, Ginny Paleg.
Good morning.
Good morning. Afternoon. I'm not sure at the moment. And Roslyn Livingstone, hello.
Hello.
Lovely to be able to speak to both of you. Now, you've both just come off from actually, you've had a few sessions today already. So yes, you've already done two, Ginny, and you've just come off another one as well. Look, today we're going to talk about a paper that you have just published, but it sort of comes off the top of a topic that you've already sort of presented on today as well. So your paper that you've published is all on supported stepping devices, something that I'm very passionate about. But you were also just in a mini symposium about positioning for GMS level 4 and 5. So there's always so much to unpack there. It's a population, a group that we know that is heavily understudied. And when it comes to publications in this area, the two of you guys are really responsible for a huge bulk of it. So how about you give us a bit of a summary about this latest article that you've published? And let's take it from there, because there's a lot to unpack here.
Well, in the US, therapists were telling Ginny that they needed to order a stander first, and then they had to wait between 1 and 5 years before they could get a stepping device. When we know that in order to give children with non-ambulance CP more equitable opportunities for practice and for motor development, that they need both in the first year. So we published 2 scoping reviews on the evidence, first for standing and then for stepping devices. And in this latest article, we compared and contrasted the evidence through 2 contemporary frameworks, the F words for childhood development and the IHAT, that's the Interdependence Human Activity Assistive Technology model that was developed from the HAT model by Fannie Lee. And we tried to illustrate the many interactions between the child, the family, the caregivers, peers and contextual factors when they're using these devices, because children with non-ambulance CP are interdependent with others. And our aim is often to increase engagement and autonomy rather than expecting them to be completely independent. When we're prescribing standing or stepping devices, you don't just consider the child's needs, but the transfers, what they're going to be doing, where they're going to be doing it, who they're going to be interacting or participating with, and the emphasis is on being and doing together.
I love that, and I love how well that aligns with the conference theme, the societal symphony. We're talking about collaboration, impact generation. So, you've really touched on a lot of things there. I want to go right back to the beginning when you mentioned about standing frames, supported stepping devices, and often the dilemma it is in prescribing one or the other, it seems. Ginny, you've got a bit to say on that one. What?
I have a bit to say on everything.
Yeah.
I think what's really fun about my 20-year relationship with writing and researching with Roz is that I come to it with all these emotions, like I can't get a stander and a stepping device for my kid. I've got to fight this. And I try everything and nothing works. And then I'm like, okay, Roz, we're going to write. And then we write it and we submit it. And they're like, but there's not enough evidence. And we don't publish opinion pieces. You have to give us a scientific piece. And then COVID happened. And that was lucky for us because it gave us the time to get all that evidence behind it, to be more understanding of what research existed and what the outcomes were. And then I'm, again, the emotional one. Roz is the OT, so she's all about the facts. Thank you very much. And so what she did, especially in the visual abstract, is that what it's called? Graphical abstract? Is we sorted, what do you get from standing? What do you get from stepping? And so if you had to make a choice, which of these ICF or F-word outcomes are more important to you? Well, if society is forcing you to choose, then choose the one that goes best with the outcome you're looking for.
Sure. I really like that. And I have seen that graphic as well. And I really encourage everyone to have a look at this article. We'll put a link of this one in on our website too. It's open access, great graphic. I love that you've talked about both. Sometimes it's like one or the other. It's often like the conversation piece, often because it's of the expense. And that's usually the reason, the barrier that's being presented. But let's go through that a little bit more now. Like, why would you choose a stander? What's the evidence for that? And what's the evidence for supported stepping? Like, where does it currently stand? And I would agree, during COVID, I did see a lot of articles that you guys have published. There was a lot. But now we have something to base our conversation on. So what's the current evidence, Ros?
So the experimental evidence is stronger around in standing when it relates to bone mineral density improvement, prevention of contractures, and less strong, but there's emerging evidence for impact on hip stability.
Right.
And so it's kind of more the fitness or the body structure and function kind of outcomes. They're a little bit stronger. When it comes to supported stepping, I mean, there is evidence for improvement in bowel function, and but it's more about activity and participation, and there's tons of qualitative research about how it improves like children's sense of autonomy and independence and their relationship with others and the whole impact of being eye to eye. And when you look at why therapists are prescribing stepping devices, it's not so much about walking or the gait pattern or the stepping. It's about increasing physical activity. And so I think the potential is there that we could show changes in muscle development and these other like fitness cardiovascular outcomes. Like if you think about it logically, those are the things that might improve in a stepping device. Whereas in a standing frame, it's more about the alignment in the weight bearing. You get better weight bearing, obviously, when you're in that more supported position. But I think the key thing is that you can do them all, that there are benefits from both. If you can't get funding for both, maybe you can put on the knee immobilizers to get better standing and weight bearing when you're in your stepping device for a period, and then you move for other things. So if you're standing to do art or something, maybe you put the knee immobilizers on, but then you take those off and you move with the other kids to other activities and so on.
I love how it's always about the options, and it's not just about one or the other. And I think that's where, I don't know, I feel like we've spoken about that as well, the tyranny of or of and
Ginny Minkle.
It's really quite an interesting fact. And how do we go down that path when it doesn't align with anything that we would ever accept in our lives? It's a really interesting thought. So
I have 3 kind of kayaks. I have one for 2 people, one for rivers, one for rapids, one for lakes. I have it all. I have my my road bike, my off-road bike, my racing bike, my power bike. Like, they deserve that too.
That's right.
And sometimes people will argue you can't do it all. And what's been really fun is now we've got 3 articles on you can have it all. We've got a case study with a kid with spinal muscular atrophy type 1 treated. We've got twins with pretty significant dyskinesia, and now we have the Hutch study as well. I'll let Roz go into the details.
So as part of the early power study, when we were loaning devices, power mobility devices for 6 months, we also we were trying to figure out a way to track whether their use of the device changed at the beginning and the end of the loan. Was it just novel and then they spent lots of time in it, and did that go down over time? So as part of that, we used the Hutch questionnaire, which asks about all the devices that they use. So we had data showing how much time they spent in their stander, if they had one, how much time they spent in their stepping device and seating and so on. And then we looked at it and we thought, well, it would be really interesting to see, did their use of the stepping device or the standing frame go down when they were using this novel device that had been given to them? And actually not.
Wow.
For the GMFCS4s, I think there was only one child who decreased their time stepping and increased their time in power mobility. For everybody else, it was either the same or less, more time in stepping, or they were stepping more. So I think that was it's just a descriptive study, but it's really exciting to show in a group of young children that at any GMFCS level, and that was 3, 4, or 5, that using the power wheelchair did not decrease the amount of time they spent stepping.
I want it all, and I want it now.
But it's all about living giving children the opportunity to live their very best life. And I feel like what I've been talking to a lot of people at the moment is, instead of seeing all the barriers, we're trying to find solutions, because goodness me, there are so many barriers. And if we just kept making assumptions for people, going, oh, look, you can't do this if you do that, that's based on our perception of where we currently stand, rather the person in front of us, what allows them to live their very best life. Mm-hmm. What I find really interesting about your articles, that it presented the F words and the I hat. And I want to make sure we have time to talk about that, because that's really unique. I love how you've mapped everything out to the F words. People are quite familiar with that. And the I hat, the I for interdependence. Can we talk about that for a little bit? Because I find that very interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, that was really kind of an eye-opener. I mean, it was Ginny, the way we'd gone with this article is we had tried to get it published a number of times. First as an opinion piece, then they told us to make it into a review. Then we're like, well, we've already done a standing review, so let's do a stepping review. Let's put it together. We got turned down again. Then we're like, okay, let's do a more theoretical take on it. And Ginny sent me the abstract of the IHAT from the Reston conference.
Yes. Yeah.
And the interdependence focus just really made me think about our kids at GMFCS 4 and 5. What came out in the literature was really the influence of the environment, how important the influence of other people around them, the caregiver, the parents, the peers, the other children. Like, when you think about prescribing assistive technology, it's not just thinking about what matches the child's needs. It's about thinking who's going to be putting them in that device. Are they able to lift? Are they going to need a piece of equipment? Where are they going to be doing it? Is it in the school environment? Is it the home environment? Is it inside? Is it outside? What activities are they going to be doing? If they're going to be interacting with other children, well, then it's maybe not so good that they're a great height off the ground that makes it easier for the adults, but the other kids can't actually be face to face with them, or they can't get into the water table or the sandbox. So you have to think about all those things.
So this model just helps you to really map that out for each child, to really think it through.
Yeah, and think about, like, what are the features of what are the factors of the child, their abilities and their interests and their goals and the activities that they want to do, and how that relates to everyone around them, and then the environment, the family and the friends and the caregivers.
I mean, that's really important when you think about, it's quite often reported the high rate of abandonment of assistive tech. No matter what kind of tech you prescribe, usually any bit of tech is like, ooh, fancy, shiny, I would like that. And when we talk about limited resources, well, this is our responsibility to assess this as well, right? To make sure we gain the right piece of equipment for the right time, for the right circumstances.
And I think the model, Elizabeth Nielsen said this today in our first session together, that the child doesn't need a power chair. The system needs a power chair. And that's how it's supposed to work in the States. We have IDEA. So when you're in early intervention, I'm supposed to loan you all these things so you decide what fits for your family before you access to health insurance. And in IDEA in Part B, when you're in school, it's the same thing. If you just need a power chair to get around school, school's supposed to provide that if it's part of FAPE and if it's a goal on the IEP. So I think the change I really want to see is and Andrina Sabet and Heather Feldner and Lisa Kenyon, this on-time mobility, this is a human right. It's already in the law. It's already in the philosophy. Every state in the United States is supposed to have a state assistive technology center. Well, every single one needs these pieces so I can go get it.
Yeah.
So I don't even need to make new things. I just need to enforce what's already on the books.
Wow. That's really powerful. And I guess from here, now that you've published this and you're here talking to a lot of people as well, where would you like to see this paper that you've written really have an impact on? Like, what would you like to see now with the F words, with the I hat? What do you want clinicians to do from here?
I need you to build me a support walker, like a real stepping device that's dynamic, that goes up and down, side to side, moves. So not too much mobility, not too much stability, but it's from PVC piping so that I can make it for $5 anywhere in the world out of cardboard, pipe cleaners. You tell me what's out there, my engineer friends, and you tell me how to make these things so I can get it to everybody. I believe everyone deserves the best, and everybody should get the wheelchair they need, with the most incredible technology. But if that's not a reality, then I still need another way to get there.
There still needs to be a way. Yeah, it's not just accepting but that's not there. It's actually trying to find a solution again.
Right.
Yeah.
And loan programs, I think, are key, right?
Yeah, we saw this great guy. He just took like a metal walker from the trash, like an adult walker, and then put like this, I don't know, what was it, some sort of plate that lowered like the TLSO kind of thing into the plate, and the kid was off and going.
Wow.
Right. And in their the scoping review of stepping devices, we came off that study from India where they basically took a K-walker and then they just attached supports to it and turned it into a hands-free walker. So it can be done in lower resource settings, and people just need to be more
In
creative.
Kenya, they made it out of cardboard.
In cardboard, yes,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah.
So we did try to incorporate some of those ideas because yes, it's not all just about the high resource setting and
That's
the
right.
big expensive devices, but it's about giving kids opportunities in the best way that you can.
Yeah. And I think what you're showing here, I mean, it was really encouraging for me, is in this population, 4s and 5s, it commonly is a lot of handling. It commonly is a lot of just positioning. I'm not saying position isn't important. It is important, but it's always just about that for a static position that they hold on for. And I don't know, we've all travelled here to Bruges. So we've had to sit on a train, we've had to be on a plane, and it is uncomfortable to sit in one position.
Yes.
That gives us a glimpse. But if we can find a way, just a way for these kids to be a bit more active, then we're going a long way in just trying to meet their needs.
Yeah, Mark Peterson is saying the sedentary behavior is killing our adults.
Yeah.
And Verschuren is telling us we need 2 hours of day of activity. And if standing counts because the metabolic rate goes up and it counts as exercise, well, then a stepping device, a bike, ballet, swim, like we should be able to get to 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's right.
And regardless of GMS, yes.
And we show, like in the Hutch study, it was really, that's what came out is roughly about an hour a day in the stander and about an hour a day in the stepping device. And then they were also doing time in the paramobility device as well. And if you think about the GMFCS5s, I think, were the ones that showed the most time in those devices.
Yeah.
And I think that's because parents probably realize that otherwise those kids are mostly lying on the ground or they're in their supported seating system strapped in, not able to move. And so those devices can actually give the parents different opportunities and ways to put them that they can be more active and exploring and engaged.
That's right. That's right. And we've touched on it a little bit, was that it's not just about taking steps. It's not about walking. It's about all the other psychosocial benefits from physical activity. You mentioned that earlier. Physical activity, well, why do we engage in it? For all those great reasons, right? We get that hit of the positive feelings, the self-esteem, resilience, confidence. Like, we all enjoy those things too. So lots for us to think about, and a wonderful paper to really put everyone on the same wavelength when it comes to this population as well. And if you're interested, I did make a walker out of PVC. I even put up on YouTube and designed it and glued it all in, and it was pretty good. So now I need to add a little bit of body support, and they can be hands-free. It's a good option. But thank you so much for your time today. I really loved chatting. I'm sure we're going to chat much more during the conference, but I hope for everyone else that was really useful for you guys as well. We'll talk to you all again really soon. Bye.
Bye.